Covering music-related content of all genres. If it filters through Eastern Texas, it's fair game. Y'all bring it. From Texarkana down to the coast and Dallas down to Houston and everything in between. We are ETX ROCKS! Hit the brakes. Cut. Hey y'all, welcome to a brand new episode of the ETX ROCKS podcast with Boston Chris. We're sitting out here in Kilgore, Texas. We're going to talk with the former president of Waller Broadcasting, Mr. Bill Waller, will be on this episode of ETX ROCKS. We're really excited about talking with him. But first, we got to pay some bills. So I wanted to tell you guys about Neil's Guitars and More out there in Kilgore, Texas. Neil's Guitars and More is located at 119 North Longview Street, Suite 1, right there by the railroad tracks and right there by the derricks. You can't miss the shop. If you know where the derricks are, just go across the railroad tracks and you are there. Mr. Neil Laney is a huge supporter of local music all over the East Texas region. And right now they're offering guitar lessons. They're really looking for more students here at the shop. Neil gives beginner lessons in guitar, and Rio Wallace, who you guys may have heard of out there, gives advanced lessons for guitar. And of course, Rio is a multiple-time finalist for Male Guitarist of the Year and a member of the 2015 Rock Band of the Year teaser. So y'all make sure you come out to Neil's Guitars and More right here in Kilgore, Texas. Sign up for some guitar lessons, come out and get your instruments repaired. And if you don't have an instrument yet, he's got a very cool selection right here at the shop. Remember, 119 North Longview Street in Kilgore, Texas, or give Mr. Laney a call at 903-984-4900. So we're sitting here with Mr. Bill Waller, former president of Waller Broadcasting. And before we get further into this episode, I wanted to give you the opportunity, sir, to speak about recent events that happened at Waller Broadcasting and 95.3, 102.3 The Breeze, without any editing, without any biasness, and without any twisting of facts and context. If there's anything you'd like to say about those events, we'd appreciate that.
Okay. Well, I think everybody knows what happened. On August the 1st, we were, Carter and Brandon went to the front door. It was locked. The locks had been changed. They went to the side door. Apparently, it had been left open inadvertently. They walked in the station. A few minutes later, Jacksonville Police Department arrived and told them that Susie Waller had presented them with a power of attorney that had been signed by a judge, and that they had been terminated, and therefore they were trespassing. And, they'd be arrested for criminal trespass if they didn't leave immediately. So they did. And to me, the situation was, it was, we really didn't expect that to happen. We had lodged a complaint with the owner of the company on certain possible OSHA violations, and people had gotten sick in the office, and also with TWC on the hostile workplace environment. And we felt that this was the response, that in response to that complaint to the owner, that they just fired everybody. It was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. We actually know it was not planned out because the first day of the month is normally billing day. And that's when we send out statements to our clients. Well, there was quite a bit of money on the books, thousands of dollars that they didn't bill out because they didn't have anybody to do it. So if they had planned this, they would have waited until the billing had come.
Right.
So that's all a real tragic situation. The way I look at it at this point is that there's no reason to look back. It's done. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for revenge or holding animosity for anybody. We just move forward, and it may actually be the best thing that has happened to a lot of members of our staff, because I've already seen that, for instance, Carter, Brandon, and Hannah have been courted by a number of other broadcast operations, and I can guarantee you that they will be placed in another market. Most likely, not most likely, but absolutely, it's going to be a bigger market, and they'll be getting much more pay and many more benefits than what they had here. So that's actually a good thing. Sometimes, you we were struggling. We were working real hard. We'd done well. We had taken a situation that was impossible and we made it work. And we were, doing well. The morning Madhouse was gaining in popularity. And sometimes whenever you do something like that and it's really good, there are certain people that can't stand it.
Right.
They just, the better it does, the more they hate it.
There's always going to be haters out there.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what went on here. But like I said, the good news is, I believe that, a number of our employees have already been placed. I would just ask that if anybody, that these were the best group of people I've ever known, and every single one of them would be a great find for any employer who wanted to find them, and I'll stand behind every one of them.
And we will for sure get into that a little bit further into the episode, but like I told you before we hit record, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of get your, kind of your side of the story out there without anybody, cutting it or anything like that. Before we got into the important stuff that's important to you, but before we get to the important stuff to you, we wanted to learn a little bit more about Bill Waller too. So why don't you tell us how you got into the radio business?
Well, of course, I grew up in radio. My first experience in radio was cutting an ad for Piggly Wiggly grocery store. And when I say cutting an advertisement, I mean cutting. We used a lathe on a piece of vinyl.
Wow!
And actually cut. That was a long time. That would have been in about 1958.
Wow!
So yeah, things were different back then. That was at radio station KVNE in Magnolia, Arkansas, and then as I grew up, I started working in the radio station at 12, 13 years old, helping with engineering, cleaning the heads on the tape decks, and stuff like that.
And so, your dad was he owned a lot of radio stations, right?
Yeah, so. Dad was pretty much a mover and shaker. At first, we only owned one AM station in Jacksonville. That was KEBE. It was 1,000-watt daytime.
Right.
And that supported a whole family. We grew up with nothing more than just KEB, and it was a good living, really. I say a good living. It was people thought it was better than it was.
Right.
But we did okay. He kept us fed. And then he put KWOI on the air in 1967. It was definitely one of the first FM stations in East Texas.
Wow.
I don't know whether he or Rusty Reynolds put KYKX on the air about that same time. I don't know which one was first, but
I don't think it really matters.
No, both of them were way ahead of their time.
Were trailblazers,
and everybody really criticized Dad because their criticism was, well, nobody has an FM radio. What is that for? Who can listen to it? And that was really true for a number of years. That it was just money wasted.
So what was it like growing up in a household with a dad that was so influential?
Well, it was really pretty good actually because he did play-by-play on football games, and I got to go with him. That was one of the best parts about it, is that I'd go with my dad and I'd help him do stats for the football games, and I loved that part of it. I love the personalities. Radio is an incredible business. You have, I remember just about everybody that we worked with. A lot of them are gone now. Rick Watson and Park Watson and Max Stevens, Pat Leopard, Perry Andrews. They were family to me. And radio is a very small business, so it's like, you're talking about 15, 20 employees at most. And you live with these people. These people don't work 40-hour work weeks. They work 60-hour work weeks. Radio's not just not a business you go into if you just want to make money.
Right.
You
got to have that passion and drive to make it work.
You do. And one of the things, the most important thing that Dad ever told me, and I asked him, I said, how do you become successful at radio? And he said, you always give the customer more than they paid for.
Right.
Always do that. And he said, you'll be successful. And I believe he was right. That's kind of core, to me. And he did. And I'll say that for my dad. Dad could be a real difficult person sometimes. But the one thing that he did that I really remember and admire and respect was that he took care of his customers. He would be up at 2 o'clock in the morning writing copy for Bell's department stores or Discount City, which is used to be a real great store. Those kind of things stuck with me and made a huge impact.
And how much pressure have you felt trying to fill his shoes?
Oh, I'm never going to try to fill his shoes. You know,
Right.
and that's just not going to happen. You know, Dad was a good man, and in my way, I'm okay. You know, I do what I can. But no, I would never try to fill his shoes.
And the love of local, that's always been what's impressed me most about Waller Broadcasting. It's always been local.
And my dad. I mean,
that came from your dad as well?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, his local was Jacksonville, you know,
Yeah.
and mine was more the area, Tyler. But that's what makes radio good. That's what makes radio different from, you know, XM Sirius or, you know, or Pandora or Spotify or whatever.
Right.
You know, is that you're not going to turn those on and hear about some local event, you know, that's going on down the street. When I worked at K104 in Dallas, they did a lot of research. You know, they were always, you know, doing call-out research. They asked people, why do you listen to K104? And their response was overwhelmingly, the strongest response was, well, we want to know what's going on the weekends.
Right.
You know, we want to know what's going on in town. You know, the music, the, you know, events. So.
Well, that was always the cool thing to me about the Breeze and Waller Broadcasting is, you know, you guys had a certain format, which was top 40, but yet you guys didn't live inside that format. So, like, when Carter and them were doing the local music Tuesdays, you know, it wasn't always top 40 music that you got to hear from those local people that they had in the studio. So it was, and of course, you know, we just interviewed Carter and them with the Madhouse, and they kept mentioning, we just didn't want to be in a box.
Exactly.
You know, we don't want to be placed in this box and be kind of restricted inside that box. And I mean, so many, to me, on the outside looking in, and I have no radio business whatsoever, or experience. But to me, it seems like locally here, it seems like a lot of stations are dropping the ball as far as presenting local talents and local charities and local businesses and things like that.
Well, I can understand that too, because theirs is a corporate culture, and it's you know, it's focused on cash flow.
Right.
And I can understand that, because you have to have those things to survive in a business. But what I think they really lack is, I mean, I think they're answering to corporate so much that they forget they have to be extremely responsive to the community. They have to be part of the community. They need to be beholden to the community.
Right.
I mean, because my prayer every night when I go to bed is, Lord, thank you for my advertisers who have made all this possible, you know, because they do. I mean, we love our listeners very much, but the advertisers make it all possible.
Right.
And those advertisers, their commerce is local. And so you serve local listeners, local commerce, local charities, events. And I think radio is about bringing people together. You know, that's what it is. It's radio. The problem it solves is loneliness.
I agree.
You know, the big issue. And that's why I'm in it.
So speaking of, you know, solving loneliness, I know you had an amazing team. It took you many, many years to get the team that you felt comfortable with, and you've told me many times about how difficult it is to build that radio family that's almost to the point of perfection. So tell us about your family, the team you put together. Tell us about it.
I'm so proud. To me, if somebody asks me what's the greatest accomplishment of my life, that's it. I mean, what we've done in the past 2 years, and we all owe it to Angie Dolezal. I mean, she did this. I'm just to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if a man can do this. I don't know if a man is capable of really doing this like a woman is. I mean, of course, you've seen more radio stations like Town Square. They're using quite a few. All the radio stations in Shreveport have women as managers, general managers, and there's a reason for that. Because in radio you have some eccentric personalities. You have people who are born to be in the public light, and people who, and in a nice way, I mean, it's not divas, but they're egocentric to some extent.
Yeah.
And
bigger than life.
And bigger than life, and they're they can be touchy about certain things. I think it takes a woman to almost understand that.
Right.
It's like it's like taking care of your kids. Well, Angie, when she came to work, she didn't come to me. I came to her.
Yeah.
I knew her through Rod Knighton, who was with Rod Knight in Video Productions in Longview, and Rod is a visionary, very honest man. Not always overly polite, but he's very honest.
Right.
And so I like Rod because when you get information from Rod, it's good information. Rod told me, he said, you know who you ought to hire is Angie Dolezal. He said, I've known her for a lot of years. Tell me all about her. So I asked Rod, I said, well, see if you can get me an appointment with her. And he did. He got me, he and me. And when we got together, he got up and left me and Angie to talk. So I had her cornered, and I said, Angie, why don't you go to work for me? And she said, well, Bill, I don't need a job. I've got, I'm making plenty of money. I've got things going. I don't work that hard. Why would I want to go to work for you? And I said, because we need to change the world. We need to change the radio industry. This is something that these, the radio stations don't know why they're doing what they're doing, and we need to do this. And she said, well, I don't know anything about radio, Bill. I said, it doesn't matter. We need to reinvent it. So we did.
So you needed that outsider to come.
We needed somebody out of the bit, because all we were going to do is bring the standard formula back in.
Right.
And that's not what we wanted.
Yeah.
We wanted to change things up. And Angie, oh wow, I can't believe what she did in 2 years. She took a ragtag team of people who were good people, but they didn't have the cohesiveness.
Yeah.
They would go in different directions. They would, there was, animosity in the group between people. There was friction. And I told Angie, I said, what I want more than anything else is a cohesive dream team. I want a, like the Dallas Cowboys dream team, like Roger Staubach, Emmitt Smith, and that kind of a thing. And she said, well, so I think that got her interest. I think that's what interested Angie, is the ability to come in and build her dream team too. Because I think, maybe not specifically for radio, but I think Angie has a knack for dealing with people. Right. And I think she knew she could do it, and I think she knew she was probably the only one that could do it.
Well, from the outside looking in, and of course I'm friends with most of the people that were part of your family. But from the outside looking in, that's what it appeared to be to me, was a family. It didn't appear to be a team, and you would see them messing around with each other on social media. And I mean, I've had the opportunity to come on your station a couple of times for different events and things like that, and it was always the same thing, especially if you ever got Carter and Brandon around each other. It was never, ever serious about anything. But, I mean, they legitimately care about each other and you, of course. But also, they're messing with each other. They're not serious, but at the same time, they're pushing each other.
They are. And I think the best thing was that anytime one person had a win, it was everybody's win. We were all happy for them. And and it's funny. I mean, if we'd get together, and whenever we'd break up, it'd be like, "Hey, I love you, so-and-so. I love you, so-and-so." Excuse me, just a second. I'm really, this was a family,
right?
And they're still my family, and they're always going to be that way. We're going to break up now.
Well, I mean, even if you consider it a breakup, okay, we just did an event that was planned before all of this happened in Longview. It was a Unity for the Community Peace Rally. That Carter and Brandon and Hannah had put on. Of course, Hannah, you guys out there might know her as Ginger on the Breeze. But they put together this event, and everybody came out from the Breeze family. And there were no frowns, there were no tears, there were no sadness at all. It was just, hey, we're out here to show the community that, some bad things might have happened to us, but it isn't about us, it's about the community, and it's always been about the community with the Breeze. That's been my perspective.
I agree. And, the only sad thing to me about it is that they put in such a huge amount of effort.
Right.
I mean, these are, like I said, these are not 40-hour-a-week people. These are people who live, who eat, sleep, and breathe this. And, when they get up in the morning and get in the shower, they're thinking about what they're going to do this day. These are people who poured their hearts and soul into this. And I know that it's going to pay off for them.
I mean, Brandon Michael drank urine.
I can't say I do that, but, God bless his soul. Of course, it's radio, too, and I don't know. But they did. They went the extra mile. These people did. And I feel like I owe them a tremendous amount. I mean, there's nothing I wouldn't do for these guys.
Right.
You know, I mean, I would crawl on glass for these guys. There's nothing, because they are spectacular. And, you know, just about the time we had it all, and I think that's really what it amounted to. We got it to a point where we had reached critical mass. And, you know, I think somebody saw, oh, if I let it go any further, I really won't ever be able to stop it. So,
right. So would you like to introduce each member of your team and talk a little bit about them? Or?
Well, yeah. Of course, you know, I mentioned Angie, and you can't say enough about Angie. I mean, you can go on and on and on about how Angie, I mean, she knows how to deal with people better than anybody I've ever seen. She knows how to tie things together. You know, the reason the laser is so powerful is because the beam is cohesive. You know, all the waves come together, and that's what Angie organized. And let's start with, you know, and I have to think about Brain a little bit too, because Brain worked for me for 8 years, and you know, Brain made a mistake.
Right.
I made several mistakes, and Brain is paying the price for that. But you know, when you work with somebody like that for 8 years, it's like a child.
Right.
You know, and when something horrible like that happens, there's a huge amount of regret. There's regret on my part. Why did I not see that? So that I could intervene and do something about it.
Right.
You know, you when something like that happens, you grieve.
Yeah.
You know, you grieve for a while, and I mean, we've been through that process. But Brain was an extremely talented person, and he had a lot of gifts. He crossed the line where he shouldn't have.
Right.
Then, of course, Carter took over, and man, Carter, I mean, I got to tell you, Carter is one of the most noble human beings, and one of the most intelligent human beings, and sensitive and loving people that you will ever find. Carter is a guy, I mean, I would vote for Carter for president. No question in my mind, he would be one of the best we ever had.
I would totally do that too if he wasn't a Cowboys fan.
Well, yeah, no. Well, that's unfortunate. But no, Carter. You know, Carter is a family man. Carter is, like I said, he's very, very intelligent. He didn't always agree with what I had to tell him,
right?
And that's fine. You know, of course, I really don't want to be around a bunch of people who just agree with everything.
Absolutely.
I want people who give me some positive pressure back, and the reason for that is because if people believe in what they're doing, they're going to do a better job of it. And if I'm wrong about something, I need to know about it. I need to figure it out. We need to, you know, if we disagree, we need to dig in, find out what
right.
the problem is, and we'll probably come to an agreement.
Yeah.
You know, after we dissect it. And look, Carter did that. And Carter, I wanted some programming changes in the music that I knew would be a lot better for us. That, you know, that I knew, you know, that most of the bigger markets do it in certain ways, and they've figured it out because they've got this personal people meter that gives them instant feedback on everything. They know when they play a song that you know drives listeners away. They know it instantly, and so that's a good way to playing your music is to follow.
It's a good barometer.
It is a good barometer. Carter picked up on that, and I wanted Carter to go outside this market to learn more about music. Well, Carter hooked himself up with Michael Martin who was a VP of CBS music programming.
Wow.
I mean, like in the country, could you find anybody?
Right.
And this guy, Michael Martin, is calling Carter on the phone and mentoring Carter.
Wow.
And teaching him how to do music. And I'm saying, what would it cost to get somebody like that?
Right.
I mean, you know, you're talking about a VP of CBS.
Just asking a question.
Oh my gosh! But see, that's the kind of guy Carter was.
Right.
I mean, he would go down. I think he made friends with that guy at one of the music festivals there in Austin, and he just instantly made such a connection with people.
Right.
They liked him and wanted to help him out. Now Brandon's one of the most intelligent individuals I've ever met in my life.
Absolutely is.
I loved Old English poetry, but I can cite a line from any poem that I can think of. Brandon can cite the whole poem, just like verbatim, just like that. You know, and I can read it out of a book and get it wrong. Brandon will correct me and tell me, no, it says this, not that. You know, but Brandon is, and he's not a smart aleck. You know, I mean, he just Brandon knows. Of course, his real name is Shelley. So one of his ancestors was Percy Bysshe Shelley. you know.
And no, we're not editing that out, Brandon.
But Brandon, you know, like I said, Brandon also another one of these guys, very honest, very diligent, very smart, you know, and they're going to do really, really well. I wish I could tell you everything I knew about what's going to happen with them. You may know already, but
I might know a little.
Okay, good deal.
I know I can't say it though.
It's going to be spectacular though, and they well deserve it. They should get that. I told Carter, I said, Carter, I was working with Carter on the music, and we had some discussions about how to do this or that. And Carter he's very humble, you know.
Yeah,
he's
very much so.
And he was saying, Bill, I really appreciate you working with me on this and everything. I said, well, look, Carter, what I want to do is, I said, you're going to be making, in 5 years, you're going to be working for a big market station. You're going to be making $800,000 a year. And you're going to have new talent coming to you that's not quite ready for the big market yet. Well, I want you to send them to me. And I'll take them in and cultivate them and get them ready for you, and then send them back to you when they get ready. Because in radio, you know, I know a lot of general managers and radio station managers, owners, that whenever somebody really good leaves, it really
leaves a big hole.
Yeah, and when they get kind of mad at them, you know, and they don't.
Right.
And this thing about it is, to me, when we've had several, Switch and Nick, man, those guys. Switch went to Denver, Nick went to Cincinnati. But when they leave, I put a feather in my cap.
Yeah.
And I say, man, wow, look at this. To see their win is my win, and that really, like I said, all of the guys on our team are like that. They don't resent somebody else going to get something good. So when they do this one, and Hannah too Hannah's amazing. You know, she was an Apache Bell, and you know, that's a very, very tough program. I mean, you think Marine Corps is tough. I think maybe Apache Bells is tougher. You know, they put those guys. It's very hard. And once they get through that program, they're disciplined. They're, you know, diligent. And she was. You could take this little girl in and put her anywhere you wanted to. And that radio show, she would learn what she was doing.
She's very, very driven. Too.
She is, and all business.
Yeah.
You know, she does not fool around. Now she's fun, and she'll carry on at events and stuff like that. When you put her in the office, it's like she's zeroed in.
Yeah. And I think what made that work so well is, I mean, you had Brandon and Carter, who are these two goofballs. Yeah. And then Ginger could just make you laugh with just a raise of an eyebrow, or just with her facial features. You know, and so putting up with the guys all the time, you know. We've got so many good people. We had Clarissa. Now, Clarissa, you know, with 5 kids, and they are absolutely the most well-behaved, finest group of kids you'll see anywhere. You're not going to see any better kids than this. And, you know, I think she's got one in college right now. You know, I think he probably got an academic scholarship. These kids are incredible. Okay, so Clarissa, she came and started working for us as a receptionist. Then we moved her into traffic. She picked up traffic in no time at all. Our CFO, who is an MBA, he's a pretty smart guy. He went back to Africa for a month-long vacation. Clarissa picked up the bookkeeping. Wow. While he was gone, and I got worried about Clarissa because I thought, you know, she was also selling. Yeah. And she was responsible for a good percentage of our sales. So I looked at the revenue report, and her sales had actually gone up. Since the added responsibility.
So I went to her and I said, because I know that it was more than full time. She was putting in overtime. She was working through her lunch hours, and I just worried. You know, her sales have got to have suffered. She was second from the top of the list. Wow. And I went to her and I said, Clarissa, I said, do you know what your sales are for this month? And she looked up at me like, am I in trouble? I told her, I said, you're number 2 right now. You know, you're like within a couple $100 of being number 1. I said, how in the world did you do that? Right. You know, but that was Clarissa. You know, whatever you expected out of Clarissa, she was going to give you more. Yeah. And I hated to let her know I expected a lot out of her because I was afraid she'd kill herself. You know. But and she is awesome. She's just incredible, and never a bad word, never a bad attitude, always upbeat. You know. And then I'm going to Nate. Nate. We hired Nate as an intern. Mm-hmm. And we really, I mean, just when you first meet him, you just think, well, he's just a kid, you know, he's in his 20s, you know. But Nate, he was also one of these people you give him a job, and he took it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we assigned him to keeping the control room clean, he would go back there and tell Brandon and Carter, get this mess clean. We need to stop doing this. They loved him, though. I mean,
right.
But Nate was incredible. And then, of course, we had Adriana, who was Compa. Single-handedly, she ran that radio station. Well, I say that her boyfriend Gabe, who is also an incredible person. He worked for us too, and they would do anything and everything that it took to make Compa work, and they did real good. We have so many good people. Roy Huffstetler, I don't know if you know Roy.
I haven't met Roy.
Roy's a bass guitar player, and he also has several of the e-cig juice stores in East Texas.
Yeah.
And he's played with Adam Brown quite often. I like Adam a lot. He's really neat. But Roy's been just as stable as he could be, very professional. He's the most professional person we have on our staff. I mean, suit and tie. He's our IBM guy.
Okay.
So, and let's see who else. Jen. Oh my God. Angie and I, Jen wasn't with us long, but Angie and I could both see that Jen was focused. She was zeroed in. She's intelligent, and she's unstoppable. We knew that she was going to probably be the best salesman we had. I wish we had, let that have time to develop, because I think she's a star.
I agree.
I think she has got good things in her future.
That's my co-host.
Yeah, well, she's man. Both of you are lucky to have each other, because I think she. You know how she is. I don't
absolutely.
Need to say any more about that. I know I'm leaving people out.
Big Vic.
Oh, Vic is. Look, don't tell Vic that anybody said anything bad about you, and if you do, tell him no legs broken.
Yeah, he was the bodyguard.
Yeah,
I think he definitely was.
Love Vic. And Vic is incredible. He's, like I said, he is a bulldog. He would, Vic would do anything that was needed of him, anytime it was needed. And we'd call him to drop of a hat, say, hey, we need somebody on the board to do this. And like I said, I didn't dare tell him anybody had ruffled feathers of anybody else, because I didn't want any legs broken.
Yeah.
And Vic's just an example of just one more person on the staff who had a great attitude, very easy to get along with,
Absolutely.
And there were so many good people. You
had J-Mo.
Oh, J-Mo's the best weatherman in the market. I think that whoever would pick up J-Mo would be real smart to do so. J-Mo's not the suit and tie weatherman that you see on TV.
I agree.
But really, that's not what I want. I want somebody who's going to be entertaining, personable, who the audience can relate to, and J-Mo is that.
Right.
And he's new and different, and I think refreshing. I think he's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
I loved his weathercast. I love his podcast.
It was different.
It was different.
It was different and unique, and it was like, am I really listening to the weather? Is this guy serious?
And it was good. And J-Mo had the look. The young girls are going to like J-Mo's look, and I think
it's not like me with the perfect look for radio.
Oh, I think you have the look too. I'm the one, that's why I always stayed in the background. Being 63 years old, I was the oldest guy on the team.
Yeah.
And didn't really fit, but man, I sure had a great bunch of people in front of me.
I think we're missing Jeff Enoch and Bill Childress.
Oh, Jeff. Of course. I guess I always wanted to work out a stunt where we had Jeff on a stage for some reason, and we enticed him to take off his shirt in front of the girls. Because Jeff has probably got the most absolutely cut, sculpted body that I've ever seen in my life. That's a huge accomplishment. But that's really not the best thing about Jeff. The best thing about Jeff was Jeff is a team player. Jeff is also very intelligent. He's very focused, and I think Jeff was going to be very good. Jeff showed a lot of deference to people. He was very polite and very kind-hearted
and quiet.
But I think Jeff would have done really, really good. He was a hard worker. No question about it.
And he was the one that organized the Longview
single-handedly,
by himself.
He sure did, and did a great job of it. He's kind of a guy that takes pride in what he does. So Jeff was another one that I would have been very, very proud, to have on my team. I'm just sorry, again, we didn't get to work more with Jeff than we did because it takes a while to really cultivate when you go to work as a salesman for a radio station, usually it takes 6 months or so to really get enough business on the books.
Yeah, to build your contacts.
Yeah, and once you get a number of accounts on the air, a quorum of accounts where you can make a living, then you just add accounts to that. You don't have to work near as hard. But at first you have to work really, really, really hard. Radio salespeople like Barbara Biggs or Robert Taylor, those guys are very successful. They probably knock down 6 figures a year real easy. They don't have to work that hard because they've established themselves. They've got
everything's already built up and
rolling, and they just go back and get renewal orders,
Mm-hmm.
But they deserve that because they put in what it took to do this. A radio can be really difficult or really great. It can be very difficult when you're getting started, and really good after you're established.
Right.
So
the only one I can think of still is Bill Childress.
Bill Childress was our scientist. He was our Spock. He was Bill Childress is a smart guy who knew how to use Radio Advertising Bureau provides services for marketing, lead generation, tracking of sales. And Bill is the guy who dug into that and figured it all out and learned it to help everybody else with it. Because that's one of the hardest things you have to do in radio is you've got 6, 7 salespeople, and you don't want people stepping on each other's toes. When they go out to talk to an account, there's got to be some place where they can check and say, who's talked to this guy in the past?
Right.
And you can't always get in touch with the sales manager. So, RAB, they can log into RAB and see that, somebody else has already contacted this person, or that somebody had contacted him a year ago, but that person's no longer with us. So I can see the history on it.
Right.
This is what the customer said. This is, said he was waiting until so-and-so to buy, or something like that. And Bill's the guy who figured that all out for us. Bill was very methodical, numerical, driven by metrics, and Bill would have helped our station propel to high levels. At about this point is where somebody like Bill would have really come into play. Because we'd gotten things together, we'd gotten people where they knew how to sell. We were starting to use the metrics, the data, and Bill was the best I've ever seen at sharing that, teaching other people how to use it. Bill was an incredible man of great integrity. The clients the friends that he made, like Encore Advertising and people like that, I think they will remember Bill, as being a guy that they want to do business with.
Right. So I think that's the full team.
I hope so.
And I think the overwhelming theme was that they all have passion, and they all seem to put in more than what they needed to put in.
That's right. They did.
And that's a dream team for sure. When you have a group of 15 to 20 people that all have the same qualities and all putting in more than they're supposed to, that usually leads to a lot of success. I would say anyway.
I think so.
So what are some challenges that you find to be unique in running radio stations?
Well, as I said, of course, the main thing is it's got to be different, because about 30% of listeners today are going to be listening to non-terrestrial broadcasts, like internet radio and satellite radio and things like that. So you've got to have something that has a unique advantage that make people want to go and say, hey, I'm going to listen to this because I'm going to hear about local weather, and I'm going to hear about local events, and I'm going to hear about what my friend Carter's doing this weekend, and even advertising. If you have a good radio station in November and December, a lot of women will be listening to it to find out what's going to be on sale where.
Right.
Yeah. And that's twofold. That's a service to your listeners, and it's also a service to the advertiser.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, radio puts people together, and it puts puts buyers together with sellers, and it puts friends together, and it puts givers together with charities, And that's what you've got to do in radio. That's why it's different. It's not just a jukebox.
Yeah.
The jukebox concept. That's if you want that's somewhere else. But
right.
that we're not going to draw customers away from XM, Sirius, Pandora by being a jukebox.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I love that what you just said. It answers the question way beyond what I could have figured out. I mean, I know a little bit about local music and things like that, as you know, but this is a side of radio that I didn't know a whole lot about, so I was really excited about talking to you.
You know what would really be good, though? Is if you guys had a radio station, because you already do this thing about going out in the community and integrating with people. You do it so well.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, you guys had a radio station? You would be kidding.
Well, I've told Nathan, I said, and Nathan asks me all the time, what do you want to do? What do you want to be in 5 years? And I always say, if I won a lottery ticket tomorrow and I had all this money, I would build a radio station that played nothing but local music. And I think it would take off. I really do. Because, you go out to any town in East Texas and go to a dive bar with a local band, and the place is packed.
Yeah, it
now,
is.
Imagine if you brought that, out to over the airwaves, where you had Darren Morris played, and then right after him you had Teaser played, and it's not based on genre; it's just based on local.
I like it. Yeah, and you continue to do what you're doing now by bringing audiences together,
right,
with the music, combine that with the radio, and I think you got a winning formula. No question about it.
I will have to put that. Nathan, did you hear that?
Nathan can handle all the other stuff. He's got his MBA, so he knows all the business planning. You've got everything you need in the formula to make that work. And really, other than that, radio is about maintaining cash flow.
Yeah.
Nathan knows all that. He knows
absolutely
how to do that.
He does. and he's teaching me. I'm hopefully fixing to go into the production side of things. We have some compilation albums coming out.
Great.
And so I'm a little nervous because it's outside my box, but at the same time, I don't like to be in a box. And my box right now is kind of publicity and the booming voice and, putting people together and getting people motivated. So yeah, getting into the production side of things is a little nerve-wracking to me. So this is one that I want to hear your answer to this. I think this might catch you a little off guard. So through all of this and your career in radio, you've had quite a hand, I would say, and a lot of other people I think would agree with me, in shaping the East Texas community in a positive way. How would you say that your career and experiences in the community have shaped you?
Oh my goodness. I would say that I have grown so much in the past 2 years because I now believe that you can put a dream team together. It's something that, that I have tried to do and wanted all my life, and it always seemed like there was something not exactly right about it. I have seen Angie Dolezal do miracles, and now that I know that can be done, and the synergies that she has cultivated with people like y'all, and the cannery in Lindale, and Ty Phelps, the Lamberts, the synergies that I owe to Angie. I would say that I've learned more in the last 2 years than I can remember learning about radio all the time before that.
And you started in 1958.
59.
59.
Yeah.
So that's 58
58. No, you're right. Doing the commercial for the Piggly Wiggly.
So you're talking 58 years approximately. Yeah. And you learned more in the last
2 years about how to do it right.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Because you try things that don't work, and a lot of things don't work. Edison tried 1,000 different things for the electric light bulb, and finally, in the last 20 seconds of his research, found tungsten. So then I feel the same way. I finally found what I think is the solution and what makes it all work. And I'll never try to run a radio station without a strong woman involved, like Angie, because I've never seen a man be able to do what.
And that's Angelica Love on Facebook.
That's right. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Incredible. And her husband, he's put up with all this. Oh, Jerry is awesome. Jerry's about, I think, was Jerry about 6'5" or something, very rugged guy, real man's man. And he's a good role model to have around because I'm pretty passive and let people run over me sometimes. And Jerry said, well, I'll go there, But sometimes I need that. I need to have a role model like that and all of us guys none of us were really aggressive, type males. So Jerry was our go-to man when
Right.
he was he was very solid and gave Angie that platform, and he allowed Angie to do that because behind every good woman there's a good man.
Absolutely, I agree.
I agree. Wrong, so.
I completely agree. So I know when we started talking on Facebook about doing this show, the idea was that spawned from this is how caring you are about certain charities in East Texas,
yeah.
and about a challenge that you wanted to give other radio stations in the East Texas area, and maybe even an offer to help them.
Absolutely.
So tell us about the main charities that mean the most to you, and of course that were featured on the Breeze so much, as well as what your challenge is to other radio stations.
Well, one of the things, one of my the most interesting charities to me is the No Kill Shelter. The Pets for People, and I think the Palooza provided about $100,000 a year to them, and it was most of their budget, most of what they had. And there's not another no-kill shelter in Tyler, Texas. Gandhi said, you can judge the greatness of a nation by the way they treat their animals, and I do believe that. And look, dogs are man's best friend. If you have dogs, that they're the most loving creatures, and for us to neglect them is wrong as a people. We have an obligation. We cultivated dogs from wolves, and they can't take care of themselves in the wild like the wolf could,
Right.
and we need to take care of them. It's only human to do so, and so I would suggest that any radio station look, these events won't hurt you a bit, and you know that. I mean, these events, even if you do them for free and you don't make any money on them, they'll generate a lot of goodwill. There's something you can carry with you when you die, and that's another good thing, I believe. I don't think any radio station in the world would ever lose money by picking up a charity like that, or Meals on Wheels. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who really depend on Meals on Wheels to bring food out to them. They're lonely, and it's not just food. It's not just food. It's companionship. And we did a lot with Meals on Wheels. They're a good organization. I think somebody else should also pick them up, and I'm here to help in any way I can. And in the next few days, I will probably go to several of the radio stations in town and see if there's any possibility that they can help with some of these things.
And what we'll do as well is I'm hoping to put this out probably the beginning of next week, and we will tag as many different radio stations as we can.
Thank you. And Toys for Tots. There's so many kids who wouldn't.
Toys for Tots is part of my role with y'all. Carter had come to me last year during the Toys for Tots drive that y'all do at the Broadway Square Mall. And he said, hey, man, we need some music on Thursday. We have nothing going on Thursday, and Brain and I are going to be bored. No, he really didn't say that.
No, it sounds like that.
No, he really didn't say that. No, he was just like, no, we'd like to put out, just some music for people when they're coming up and giving toys and things like that. And we put together a lineup of award-winning musicians for that day. And again, this is December 10th, so I mean, it was probably in the 50s or whatever. And then none of these people said no. We're talking Darren Moore, Sarah Hobbs, Katie Lynn.
Wow.
And of course, since then, those are three people that have exploded, not just locally but nationally. And of course, they weren't the only three we had out there. We had Jen Ford and Rio Wallace and Rick Dudley, and it was a great show. Not many people came to see the musicians, and I bet you a lot of people are wishing they had now.
Yeah.
But the point is these people who are all local musicians were asked a question and it was just boom. I mean, I literally identified 5 acts that I wanted to put out, and I asked the 5, and I had 5 yeses, and the show was over.
Isn't that amazing? And isn't it amazing how people who do things like that tend to, do well in their careers?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's so important to give back.
No, I agree. And that's the overwhelming thing about East Texas musicians that I've noticed over the last year and a half that I've been involved in this. Very infrequently do you get a no from a musician or a band if you ask them to play a benefit. I can't think of a single time that it's occurred where someone will say no. And of course, there's a lot of different types of benefits. Of course, you've got the benefit where it's benefiting maybe one person that's fell on hard times or whatever. It could be like Toys for Tots, a big organization that needs help, Meals on Wheels, Pets for People. I mean, there's so many different ones. And we did one for Pink Hills of Gregg County last year with the Breeze as well. East Texas Rocks Against Breast Cancer, which is where the ETX ROCKS brand name came from, was from that, East Texas Rocks Against Breast Cancer. That's where it all started.
Wow.
And so, I mean, there's so many different charities in the East Texas area. And when you and I were talking about, charities and trying to get other radio stations to jump on board, and you said the words, I would be willing to help them and teach them how to do it, I was like, wow, we got to get you on the show, because that's a huge thing to me, that you're willing to step that far. So I hope somebody out there, if you're involved in radio, if you're involved in TV and media of any kind, get in touch with Mr. Bill Waller. If you can't get in touch with Bill Waller, get in touch with me, and I will make sure that you guys get hooked up, so that we can get these charities that might get a little bit less support because of what's happened with the Breeze. If we can get them back on board with somebody else, that would be a huge thing, not only for Mr. Waller, but also for the community. These are charities that legitimately help the local region. And the Breeze, again, these are three of so many different charities that these guys have supported over the years. We could do a whole other episode on how many different charities you guys have helped. But these are the 3 that are nearest and dearest to Mr. Waller's heart, and he's willing to not only help you figure out how to make these events be successful for you and your media outlet, but also he is sending out a challenge to anybody in the media industry to step up and bring the support to these 3 specific charities. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Maybe any advice out there for anybody, or just...
Well, I would like to thank you and your crew, because, I remember when music in East Texas was, it was hard to find local live music, and since you guys have been around, I think it's been a lot easier to find. And that's such a good thing. Music makes people happy.
Yeah. So
if you can bring music into the community and make people happy with it, I think that's an incredible thing to do.
I appreciate
Hope
that.
you keep doing it.
We will. It's not easy, but not a whole lot of backing in it. It's a lot of heart and love and passion and drive. A lot of the same things that made your team so special. Our team is a lot the same way. I know you worked with Jen, but Jen is that way. I'm that way, and Nathan, of course. We call ourselves the 3 Amigos, or the Monsters, or whatever it may be, but you get 3 people that care about something so much, and are willing to do anything to further it along the line. Jen and I say so many times that you have Nashville, and you have Austin, and you have all these different music communities that are known for music, and we always say, why not East Texas? And so that's why we do what we do, because at one point in time, this area right here where we're sitting has seen Elvis Presley. It's seen Johnny Cash. It's seen all of these huge stars that came from Nashville, that came from Austin, and they came to this area because it was ripe. And nobody has decided to grow it, and that's what we're doing. That's why we're here. So for you people out there that have asked me that question, there you go. There's the answer. Bill Waller, we thank you for coming on the air
Thank
with
you.
us. Again, guys out there, if you're in the media, get with Mr. Bill Waller. Let's get these charities the support they deserve. If you're interested in any of the people that he mentioned about his team, I know quite a few of them are still looking for work, and I guarantee you that each and every one of them would be a huge asset to your company. So if any of those people interest you, get with Mr. Waller again. If you can't get with him, get with me, and I will make sure that you get with the right people. Once again, we want to thank you for listening to this special episode of ETX Rocks. Remember to support your local music, and ETX rocks.
We are ETX Rocks!
Hit the brakes.